Tanabata Manga.
One day, my sister's child, elementary schooler next year, came to visit me, so we went for a dog with my dog. Feeling uncomfortable being followed by a notorious delinquent brother and sister who were playing there, I ignored them and kept walking. My niece wanted to go to the bathroom, and an old lady dog friend was nearby. So, I tied the dog to a nearby pole and, could you watch the dog for a second? Asked her, to which she agreed, so I took my niece and went to the bathroom. When I returned a few minutes later, the dog had vanished without a trace. I asked the old lady, who was in a panic about the situation. The delinquent brother was misbehaving with the dog, so the old lady scolded him, and when she took her eyes off, the dog was gone in a split second. I looked around, but I couldn't find the dog or the delinquent siblings. The old man who was on a walk and the old lady who also looked with me, but we couldn't find them. In the end, all I could do was thank them and leave. And the old lady who I asked to watch the dog for me. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She cried and apologized, but I couldn't blame her because I was the one who entrusted her with the dog. But I was sad that the dog was gone. I smiled as much as I could so the old lady wouldn't feel responsible. I went home and stormed into the delinquent's house, as the delinquent siblings could be the only culprit I could only think of. "Excuse me, did my dog come here by any chance?" "What? A dog? I don't know." The mother smirking at this point. "But he disappeared from the park a little while ago while your kid was nearby." "What? I really don't get it. I mean, did you see my kid stealing it?" "No, it's not like that. He's just a dog I really care about. That's why I'm worried and thought if you knew something." "What? Are you saying my kids are thieves? You better apologize. Get out!" The delinquent mother tried to shoo me out the front door, and I realized it might have been rude and apologized. As I was leaving, I burst into tears, thinking about what I would do if I can't find a dog. So I was ashamed and frustrated at myself for leaving the dog unattended. My dog is a toy poodle, small and very cute. I give him haircuts so often that people ask to take pictures of him when I'm walking him. As I'm walking home, I ran into my father, who had come home early after hearing about the dog theft. I searched the area for an hour again, but I couldn't find him, so I went home. I felt bad for my niece, who kept apologizing and crying, blaming herself. After that, I made flyers at home to put all over the town to get our neighbors and townspeople to help us. And the next day, we called the healthcare center. I was relieved to hear that our dog had not arrived. I asked them to please contact me if they find a dog that looks like it. I put up flyers around town and at my vet's office asking if anyone knew about my dog. I also put him up in supermarkets, city halls, and other places where people are likely to come and go, and waited for a call. And a few days later, the old man who's my dog friend paid a visit to my house. After listening to his story, I found out the delinquent family were walking around with a dog he'd never seen before. They ran away when he tried to stop them, so being suspicious, he came all the way over to report it to me. "Thank you so much for telling me." I bowed my head and thanked him. The old man,
"No problem. I hope you find him soon,"
said that and left. When I hear the old man's words, I thought, I knew it, and couldn't stop crying, knowing he was alive. But I knew I shouldn't doubt people without proof, like my father told me. The dog's chip number, pedigree dog insurance card, rabies shot certificate, and etc. Carrying every conceivable proof of my dog, I waited for half a day in front of the delinquent's house. The delinquent came out of the house holding my dog. I ran up to her, and she tried to run into the house with the dog in her arms, so I grabbed her arm just in time and confronted the delinquent. "This is my dog, isn't it?" "No, it's not. Can you stop with the accusations?" She kicked my leg and tried to hit me, but I couldn't let him go. "This dog is family. Neighbors were gathering outside to see what was going on while we were yapping and arguing. The delinquent breathes heavily. "Call the police! She took my dog!" and yelled. I gave the dog to a neighbor and explained the situation, desperately trying to calm myself down for the time being. "This is my dog. I have proof, right here," and showed the delinquent mother the documents I had brought with me. "No! What are you talking about? Stop playing! I'll kill you!" The delinquent mother was screaming, and her kids were crying as well. "Calling people thieves! I'll sue you!" It was pointless trying to explain anything to the delinquent mother who was out of control.
You guys need to calm down.
Then an old man from the neighborhood who was sort of a big deal appeared and decided to hear each other's arguments. The delinquent parent's side of the story is, "This is my relative's dog and they gave it to me. It's my dog. If you try to take my dog away from me, I'll sue you for defamation of character." "No! This is my dog that either ran away or got stolen a few days ago. The dog has a chip. You can see for yourself." I explained how I was taking the dog to the hospital, which also could be looked into. The delinquent mother's attitude gradually changed as I presented her with more and more evidence about the dog. "If your relative gave it to you, could you have them come over?" I'm pretty sure it was given to me by someone I know." "Who is this acquaintance? Please, call them over." I think a stranger gave it to me. I really don't remember the details." The delinquent mother who was saying random things began to expose herself. The crowd started to increase around this point, and the old man and the old lady dog came over and testified that they searched with me. My mother appeared just as the delinquent mother was becoming more and more suspicious. The dog jumps on my mother, wagging his tail like it's going to break into 1,000 pieces. My dog actually loves my mother and never leaves her alone at home. My father and I are always in tears, but I never thought that would come in handy here. It was clear to anyone which side was right when my dog kept licking my mother's tears as she held him. This dog! It's your fault for leaving him there in the first place." The delinquent mother admits her loss and said as if it was my fault. Someone in the neighborhood called the police when they noticed the commotion, so the delinquent mother was taken to the police. I don't know why the delinquent parent thought of stealing the dog, but stealing a dog is a very serious crime. There was a way to settle, but I wasn't going to, because this was a matter that couldn't be settled with just money. And after that, rumor has it the delinquent parents paid a hefty fine, and this spread like wildfire throughout the neighborhood. I asked a bunch of people about my dog and even put up flyers in various places asking for help in the first place. In a city like this, full of dog lovers, stealing a dog is the same as stealing a family member or friend. The delinquent family were frowned upon, and I don't know if they became reclusive or what, but I stopped seeing them ever since. I saw the old lady who missed the dog so. "I found him. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for looking with me." I thanked her. "I'm so sorry they made him look like this," and she cried on the spot. My dog, who had been trimmed so adorably, was cut with scissors by the delinquent parents and was in awful condition. But I was happy just to have him back, so I told the old lady, "Don't worry, he can grow as much hair as he wants again. I'll be back for a walk, so please, chat with me again." She looked so relieved and happy. This incident made me decide to never let go of the leash ever again. I was a senior in high school when I happened to see my father at McDonald's. I had no idea at the time that my father would disappear after that. That day, my friends and I stopped by McDonald's on our way home from school, and I happened to see my father when he was supposed to be at work. I was watching my father from a little distance. Maybe it's break time? But he's not wearing a suit. What's he doing? And then...
A teriyaki McBurger set, a chicken fillet set, and a happy set.
He ordered. "Which toy would you like?"
The boy's toy, then.
Then a mixed-raced boy about 5 years old clung to my father's leg through the gap between the people in line, looked up at him and smiled. My father also, to the boy.
Wait a second, okay?
And then he put his hand on his head and smiled gently. My father and I were not particularly close, but I was surprised that my father, who didn't talk much at home, would smile so kindly at a different child.
Thank you.
My father then walked to his seat, hand in hand with the boy. The boy hugs the beautiful foreign woman of Russian descent and says, "Mommy," as the boy hugs her.
The waitress will bring it to you.
He said gently to the woman, and then my father and the woman sat talking as they looked at each other. My friends who had come with me had already finished ordering. "Sorry, go ahead and sit down, then eat. I'll be right there." And then I approached my father and the two of them eating together in harmony. "Hey, Dad, what are you doing here?" Then my father spits out the coffee he was drinking all over the foreign woman sitting in front of him. "Oh my God!" the woman said and began to hastily wipe the coffee, and my father tried to say something to me. But he was stumbling on the spot because he was also concerned about the woman. Then the kid. "Who is this woman? Is it Dad's friend?" he asked my father, pointing at me. At that moment, my father and I froze, not grasping the situation. My father opened his mouth first.
This is not what you think.
I took my father's coffee and took the lid off and splashed it in his face. "You're the worst, jerk!" and walked away from the scene with those lines. I texted my friends, "I don't feel so good, so I'm going home," and then went home. They asked me if I was okay, and I told them that I was fine, but I wasn't okay at all. I walked home, feeling dizzy for a while, as if I had been hit in the head with a blunt instrument. Ugh, that asshole! My father did not return home that night, and my mother was worried all night. He won't answer his phone and he doesn't reply to my texts. I wonder if he's involved in some kind of crime. I'm thinking of calling the police. She started saying so. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe he'll come back in the morning. Anne stopped my mother. But when he didn't come home the next morning, my mother, unable to stand it, called his office. And to her surprise,
Tanabata-san has been on paid leave since yesterday.
she was told. My mother was speechless. After that, we contacted my father's acquaintances and relatives to ask about his whereabouts, but in the end, we were unable to locate him. When it came time to file a police report, I told them everything that happened at McDonald's the other day. "Oh, honey, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "How was I supposed to tell you? I was shocked too. And I didn't even check to see what the relationship was, so I couldn't say anything rash." "Right, but thank you for telling me." I could see a few tears in my mother's eyes as she said that. Then my mother stayed strong for a while, but she was very depressed and cried quietly at night. My father never came home after that day at McDonald's. Suddenly a single mother, my mother changed from a part-time job to a full-time job, and I started working part-time on my days off.
Sis.
It's okay. I won't give up. I postponed my plans to go to a technical school after high school for 2 years to save money on my own. I gave part of my money from my part-time job to my mom and saved the rest to pay for technical school. Finally, 3 years have passed since then when my father suddenly came home. He got down on his knees at the entrance to the house to everyone who was stunned.
Sign the divorce papers and the documents regarding the relinquishment of my inheritance,
he said. My mother asked him what he meant, and he said something about wanting to give all of his property to a mixed-race child. My mother was so furious, she pulled his hair, lifted his face up, and hit him as hard as she could. Don't play with me. Do you have any idea what we've been through? Get the hell out of here. She shouted at my father in a rage I had never heard my mother utter before. My brother and I backed her up. No one was on my father's side anymore, and he continued to get down on his knees with a bloody nose.
Please, sign this. If you don't sign this, she's going to leave me. I'll pay you alimony. Please sign the divorce papers and give up the inheritance.
Father begged and pleaded as he was beaten, and every time he begged, my mother beat him. My father was a wealthy man, or rather, my grandfather had made a good fortune during the bubble years, and he still had the rest of it. He said he would pay alimony, but considering the rates, the amount of money received would be different between the alimony and the inheritance. And my father...
My own children have the right to the inheritance even if I'm divorced. So if I die, I'm in trouble because I have to get the consent of all the heirs and stuff like that.
He said something like that. I felt like killing him when I heard that. Also, I found out that my father actually had cancer. Just 6 months ago. He was not feeling well, so he went to the hospital and they told him he had cancer. So it seems that the affair was the intention that the son would inherit all of my father's assets when he died. If you can't give the whole inheritance to my son, I'll leave you right now. Apparently, she told him. He wanted to spend the rest of his short, possibly life, with a beautiful foreign woman and a cute little mixed-race child. When my mother heard that, what an idiot! I hope you pass from this cancer and cross the rivers of death. She was outraged. Afterwards, my mother and father had a proper discussion about the divorce. But my mother said, "It's no use talking to him," and was angry. After a series of negotiations, my mother decided to sign the documents relinquishing her inheritance. He was to pay alimony, considerably higher than the market rate, and child support for me and my brother for 3 years he was missing. Plus, the cost of my technical schooling until graduation and my brother's future college expenses. He took out some of my grandfather's inheritance and my father paid my mother in a lump sum. My brother, who was headed off to college,
Now I can go without any worries.
he was overjoyed. I'm also relieved that I don't have to work part-time anymore, so I can finally focus on my schoolwork. After that woman became angry with my father because he gave my mother a large amount of assets as alimony without telling her. When she received the rest of his inheritance from him, she apparently took his son back to the country without telling him when he was hospitalized for cancer treatment. Do swidzenia, goodbye. I don't know what happened to him after that. He probably died alone. He got what he deserved. My mother laughed hysterically. My mother crying quietly for some time after my father disappeared may have just been my hallucination. But how could he ask us to give the inheritance when he's the one who should be giving it up and apologizing? My father is really pathetic.
I am Tanako. I will be 50 years old this year. My son Takashi and I have been supporting each other in our lives. When Takashi was in my belly, I also had a husband. I thought we would have a happy life with my loving husband and our newborn baby. But reality was different.
Tanako, I'm taking your husband.
Sister? What are you talking?
He's sleeping right next to me. He snores a little too loud, but he looks cute.
I can't believe it.
He's cheating? Cheating? Aren't you so brazen? It was his mistake to marry you. He should have married me. Mom and Dad also said that husband is too good for Tanako. Let him be Aiko's husband.
No.
So you'll have to sign and turn in the divorce papers. Bye.
My sister always took what I had. My parents only loved my sister who was good at what she did, and I was treated poorly by the rest of the family. I gave up love from my blood family, and I wanted to start a new family. I wanted to create a warm bond there. And I thought I would marry my husband and create a happy family. But my dreams were shattered by my sister. 25 years have passed since that sad event, and my son Takashi is now a respectable member of society. It was not easy to raise my son as a single mother, but because Takashi fully supported me, we were able to lead a happy life together as mother and son. Takashi supported me with housework and also studied hard and got accepted to a national university. He even received a scholarship and it cost almost nothing for tuition. You really grew up to be a good son. Takashi is your mother's pride.
That's too much, Mom. I want you to have an easy life as soon as possible. That's why I studied hard in college and was able to get into a big company. I'm gonna return the favor from now on.
Takashi, how lucky I was. I don't have a husband, but we were the happiest family in Japan. I thought so from the bottom of my heart. But the evil hand that threatened such happy times was approaching me. 2 years after Takashi entered the workforce, he brought his girlfriend home. I was a bit surprised because I didn't think Takashi would be someone who would choose a girl like that. But I trusted him because it was my son's own decision. And then he told me he wanted to marry the girl, and at the meeting of two families, a terrible thing happened.
These are Yuri's parents.
Nice to meet you. I'm Tanako, Takashi's mother. Oh, Tanako, long time no see. Sister, what are you doing here? You're still stuck up, aren't you? It's because I'm Yuri's mother, of course. Why? What a coincidence. You're so naive to think it's a coincidence. Of course not. Mom and Dad told me your son turned out to be too good for you. I thought I'd take him. But it's not easy raising a kid, is it? You don't even know how good they are until they're old enough. So I thought, why not let him grow up more and only take him when he starts to produce profit? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Luckily, we had a girl. If he becomes my son-in-law, he would basically be mine. Takashi, I hear you're the most promising newcomer at the big company. How lucky of me. I'll have a good retirement. What? Why did Takashi end up with your daughter? Oh, didn't you hear? Yuri is carrying Takashi's child. What? A boy has to take responsibility now that he has a child. No way. Is that what you're after? Did you set this up? What's wrong with that? It's your fault you had better children than me. Who do you think you are? Of course, after he's married into my family, you'll never see him again. You understand? My sister's high-pitched laugh echoed in my head like a nightmare. I thought my life would continue happily after Takashi got married, but the unexpected event left me in despair. But even though they have a baby, there is no difference in the fact that Takashi and Yuri love each other. I couldn't oppose their marriage just because of me and my sister's problems, so I couldn't say anything. And on the day of the wedding, I desperately put on the face of a mother celebrating a marriage. My sister is sitting in her seat with a victorious look on her face. I was so sad I wanted to disappear toward the end of the ceremony. It was time for Takashi to read a letter to me.
Mom, thank you so much for raising me all by yourself. I know it was really hard to raise a child by yourself. Despite that, you raised me without complaining, which I think is really great of you. You must have been surprised at my marriage with Yuri, because to you, Yuri is your sister's daughter with your ex-husband.
The audience froze when Takashi said this. I couldn't understand what was said for a moment either, and it took a few seconds for my brain to start working. Hey, Takashi! What are you talking about?
Mother-in-law. Or should I say aunt, because you're my mother's sister. Did you think I didn't know about this?
Takashi looked straight at my sister. In his eyes, there seemed to be a light of justice to judge evil.
I saw my mom's photo album once. That's when I saw a picture of you, aunt, and a picture of dad too. My mom had told me about you two. Looks like your habit of wanting everything that belongs to mom hasn't been fixed yet. I can't believe there's such a difference in humanity, even though you're sisters.
My sister's face grew redder and redder at Takashi's words, as she got up from her chair with a loud bang. What are you talking about? You are my adopted son-in-law, who is going to support Yuri and the baby. You should know your place.
Yuri's baby is not mine.
What?
Aunt may have arranged it, but unfortunately, I'm not falling for the same trick as dad.
What?
I think she tried to get me drunk, but I'm a strong drinker. On the contrary, Yuri got drunk and fell asleep. Well, she didn't seem to have any memory of it, so I made up the story, as she might have wanted to hear, but...
No, that means...
Right. Then whose child is the baby in her belly? From here, I'd like to talk about Yuri's friendships for all of you.
From there, it was Takashi's one-man show. Yuri's sleazy friendships were revealed, and all the participants in the venue turned their eyes white at once. The wedding was, of course, cancelled. The sister and my ex-husband's past became public, and the fact that they had invited so many people from the company to make themselves look good backfired, and my ex-husband resigned from his position at the company. They had been fighting every day since then. Yuri had no savings at all because she was planning to rely on Takashi to have a child. So in order to raise the newborn baby, my sister had to go to work. But my sister, who grew up spoiled, had no experience in society, and she spends her days being yelled at and used by seniors who are younger than her. Thanks to Takashi, I will be able to spend my days with a clearer mind than before. He has grown up to be a fine son, and I am truly a lucky mother.
My name is Junichi Ono, 32 years old. I've been playing sports ever since I was a student, and I have confidence in my physical strength. Working out has always been my hobby, and I've been working as a gym instructor for the past 6 years. The salary is not very high. Compared to my friends from college who work in companies, I'm still not popular with women because of my low salary. Well, I'm living doing what I love, so it's no big deal. But then, even for someone like me, I got a girlfriend 6 months ago, and we got married in no time. We're newlyweds in love right now.
Hey, your birthday's coming up. Do you want to go out for dinner?
Oh, great. It's my birthday, but I'll treat you.
Ugh, don't bother. It's my treat.
It's been a while since I went out to eat. I'm looking forward to it. Ayano was always there for me, kind and supportive, a truly devoted wife.
Wait, what happened? Did you get hurt on the job?
Oh, this? I think I got caught at the doorway. There was a nail sticking out. Gotta be careful.
Are you okay? Be careful. You fell in the bathroom the other night, right?
Yeah, there was some shampoo spilled on the tile. I really have to be careful. I've been getting a lot of injuries lately. They're minor injuries, but I've got to be real careful with my body, since that's what earns me money. I can't worry Ayano. I have to get myself together. But then again, it was strange how I've been getting injured a lot in the last few days. Just then.
Hey, let's meet up in front of the intersection on Main Street for your birthday today.
Okay, I should be done with work by 8 p.m.
I'll get you a present.
I'm looking forward to it. Alright, see you later. And a few hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed. What? Where am I? Ono-san. Junichi Ono-san, can you hear me? Ono-san, can you hear my voice? Past my blurry gaze, a doctor and a nurse call out my name. I couldn't quite grasp what was going on, but slowly I began to make sense of it. Apparently,
I had been in a car accident on my way to dinner with Ayano. Tests showed that I had damaged the ligaments in both legs in the accident. I was forced to live in a wheelchair. Without it, there wasn't a way I could survive. If I can't move my body, I'll have to resign from my job as an instructor. The doctor told me to take my time and see how it progresses, but there was no guarantee that it'll get better. What am I supposed to do from here? I continued to undergo painful rehab and treatment, but I never got back on my feet. Ayano often came to visit me in the beginning, but the number of days she came to see me gradually decreased. She'd come in now and then, and when she did, all she did was talk about alimony. And before I knew it, Ayano stopped coming too. After a month, I finally got used to the wheelchair, and I was discharged. I haven't been able to contact Ayano since then, and she didn't show up at the hospital when I was discharged either. I had no choice but to return home alone. Wait, is the lock broken? This is my house. Who are you? What? No, this is my house. Oh, are you the previous resident by any chance? Previous? I just moved in here the other day, and a woman told me to give this to the man who was the previous tenant if he came to visit. And I received an envelope from the boy. Inside the envelope was a divorce decree. No doubt, it was in Ayano's handwriting, and the reasons for the divorce were outlined on a separate sheet of paper.
No matter how much rehab you go through, your leg will never heal. I'm still young and want to have children in the future. I sold all the furniture in the house for a share of the divorce assets. Alimony was used to pay for my moving expenses, so please divorce me for my own happiness. And please don't contact me again.
I can't believe Ayano, who was so kind to me until now, was thinking like this behind my back. I don't know. I just don't care anymore. Without a place to go, I became a homeless man. I was wheelchair-bound, but the people around who felt bad for me were kind to me. It's been 5 days since I managed to start living homeless. I still haven't filed for divorce papers that Ayano left behind. I was shocked that Ayano, whom I had trusted so much, was gone, taking my house and all my assets. I was in shock, and it was hard to get my feelings in order. I can't live like this forever. I'm running out of money, and I might have no choice but to die like this. As I was thinking that, Junichi Ono, right? Oh, thank God I finally found you. I'm finally able to meet you. I was looking for you. Thank God, I'm so glad you're alive. Who are you? I'm actually the driver who got you into the car accident. I'm very sorry about that. I've been told by Mizuhara-san, the president of the company, to guarantee you enough money for your family to live on for the rest of your life. President? My name is Matsuo, of Mitsuhara Corporation. What? That major company? Mizuhara Corporation? I am the exclusive driver for the president of the company, and I was on my way to take him to work on the day of the accident. The accident was a possible suicide, and it's still under investigation. What? Suicide? It's a long story, so please get in the car for now. Without knowing what was going on, he took me in the car and drove me to a house that was set up for me. And there's even a maid. After that, Matsuo-san helped me with various things since I was in a wheelchair. He even provided me with a place to work. I joined Mitsuhara Corporation as a disabled employee with the consideration of the president. I was taught and entrusted with clerical work that even a wheelchair-bound man like me could handle. I spent my days happily immersed in my work. As I worked, I even began to dream of creating an environment where people in wheelchairs like myself could work vigorously in the future. During that time, the day of the trial arrived. Ayano was suspected of several crimes. I heard all the stories about Ayano from Matsuo-san that day I was rescued from being homeless. Ayano over-exaggerated the shock I was in and raised the alimony fee to a ridiculous amount. After receiving the alimony, they suddenly lost contact with her, and I heard that Matsuo-san and the president became suspicious and started investigating about me. Ayano's charges were my attempted murder and marriage fraud. That's right, Ayano almost got me killed. The accident was captured on the dash camera of a cab that happened to be on the other side of the road. There was footage of me being pushed by someone. Ayano was quite distraught during the trial.
I loved you. Tell them there's no reason for me to kill you. Please.
I can't trust her. I was put into a very expensive insurance policy, and if I die, it was made so all the money goes to Ayano. I didn't know anything about this insurance.
Stop talking nonsense!
Quiet!
Ayano was later arrested for attempted murder and marriage fraud. What surprised me was that she had orchestrated all the strange injuries I was getting before the accident. I shook with fear when I heard the story. I was her fourth husband, and she had killed all 3 of her husbands in accidents and received insurance money from them. I thought such a heinous incident was just a story in a drama or a movie. I never thought I'd experience it myself. 7 years later, my company was finally established as a subsidiary of Mitsuhara Corporation. More than half the employees are physically challenged. I became aware of the reality of the physically challenged, which I had never paid attention to until I was in a wheelchair. I sincerely wanted to reach out to such people, like the president who reached out to me and helped me. I want to continue to work hard.
My wife, she did something unbelievable the other day. Her father took out a loan for his business, and she made me a joint guarantor without even telling me. I had no idea about any of this until I got a letter in the mail. I had no idea about any of this, so I asked my wife what this was. Then,
Huh? I thought I told you already. I made you the joint guarantor.
what? I never agreed to that. And this loan is for your dad's business. This is a lot of money.
But we're family. You're supposed to help me.
I never agreed to this. What's wrong with you? Seriously. I was furious. I didn't even know what to say to her. Her grandfather founded the company many years ago. The company was doing pretty well when her grandfather was in charge. But then, after her father took over, things started to go south. He knew nothing about running a business. He hired people based on his type. Oh, you're hired. People started leaving the company after that. Earnings were down, but he kept spending the company's money on luxurious stuff like expensive cars and nice dinners. He paid himself extremely well, but rarely came into the office. He spent most of his time on the golf course. I tried to warn him countless times, but stay out of it. It was no use. I didn't even work there, so I decided to let it go. It wasn't my problem, you know. But now, I was his joint guarantor. His company was a mess. It was just a matter of time before it went out of business. And once that happens, I'll be $1 million in debt. And I never agreed to this. She forged my signature on the loan application. It looked nothing like my real one. I went to go see her father right away. What the hell is wrong with him? He must be out of his mind if he thinks I'm just gonna let this go. I told him I was gonna report this to the authorities. But then, what? But we're a family. You're supposed to help me. But when my daughter asked you to help us, you said you needed time to think about it. We had no choice. Seriously, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why the hell would I agree to be a joint guarantor of a company that's about to go under? I never liked her father to begin with, but I didn't think he was this crazy. And my wife was just like him.
You should have said yes when we asked you to help us.
That's when I knew I had to end things with her. Look, I never agreed to this, and you forged my signature on a loan application. This is a crime. I'm going to the cops. But then...
The police? Seriously? You can't do that.
She started crying. Why were they blaming me for this? There was just no talking to them. I decided to head home. I didn't tell my parents about this just yet. I didn't want to worry them. I called one of my colleagues and asked him to help me out. He introduced me to a really good lawyer. The lawyer told me to get the cops involved right away. My wife and my father begged me not to do that, but I had no choice now. But then I made another shocking discovery. My wife, she took all the money from our savings account. There was about 70 grand in there. We were saving up because we wanted kids someday. And the thing is, 60 of the 70 grand was my money. I saved it up when I was single. It took me years, but now it was gone. Forging my signature and making me a joint guarantor of a loan wasn't enough. Now she was literally stealing from me. I didn't even know what to do anymore. I went to her parents' house to have a talk with her, but then 70 grand? That's nothing.
I can pay that back right away. Get out of here.
Yeah, Dad will take care of everything. Stop worrying.
She didn't even apologize. You know most of that money was mine, right? You used it all?
We're married. That money is mine too. Just let it go.
What did I ever see in her? I should have never married her. A few days later, I found out something unexpected. They analyzed my signature on the loan application, and, turns out, it wasn't my wife who forged my signature. And it wasn't her father either. Turns out, it was one of his employees. He paid him and asked him to forge my signature for him. Unbelievable. Anyways, I had more than enough evidence now, so I went to go see my lawyer. Alright, I think that's more than enough evidence to prove that the signature was forged. I'll handle the rest. Sit tight. Thank goodness. And the lawyer told me that the bank was likely to sue him for fraud. A few days later, my lawyer and I went to go see my wife's father. When he realized that he was screwed, he started begging me to forgive him. He said he'll sell his company and pay me in full if I agreed to keep the cops out of this. All I wanted was to get my money back, so I decided to make a deal with him. A few weeks later, he paid me in full, and that was that. But then...
Well then, I guess I'll move back in. I bet you missed me.
Seriously? Are you dumb? I'm divorcing you. What did you think was gonna happen?
Divorce? For what? Everything worked out, right?
Shut up. You really think I'd let you move back in, after everything you did to me? Get out of my life. I never want to see you again.
Oh, what? Why?
She begged me to forgive her, but my mind was made up. I just wanted her out of my life. So I handed her the divorce papers.
Wait, no, please!
It was pathetic. She tried to fight it, but I was too tired to deal with her, so I asked my lawyer to handle this as well. He explained to her that what she did was illegal, and that if she wasn't going to agree to the divorce, we were ready to press charges. A few days later, she finally came to her senses and agreed to the divorce. She tried to fight it until the very end, but I wanted nothing to do with her. I never wanted to see her again, or her family. It was time to move on with my own life. I decided to move out of the city. I wanted to get away from them as much as possible. And thanks to my lawyer, I got all my money back, so I had more than enough money to start a new life. My ex-wife went back to live with her parents after that, but they were constantly fighting. Apparently, she was blaming her father for everything now. Whatever, not my problem anymore. She tried calling me a few times, but I blocked her, so there was nothing she could do. I was really grateful for my lawyer. He was really good. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have been possible. Oh, and about a year later, my ex-wife's father's company went out of business. When the loan application got rejected, he initiated pay cuts. But he kept paying himself the same exact amount as before. Naturally, most of his employees left the company, and the company went under a few months later. He lost everything. He even had to sell his house. Now they all live in some crappy apartment. Things weren't looking good for them. Ah well, not my problem anyways. Glad everything worked out. Time to move on with my life. My name is Taneo Tanaka. This is a story that happened before I married my wife, Nanako. I had a crush on Nanako at the time, and I used to go to the diner where she worked. At the time, Nanako's family owned the diner, and there were many regular customers who came to see Nanako, who laughed a lot and was very good-natured. A new male customer, Takashi, started frequenting the diner. Takashi's parents farmed in a place a bit far away, and he was originally in Tokyo, but it seemed like he had come back. I saw him and Nanako talking a lot, and before I knew it, they were dating. He asked her out while I took my time and hesitated. Then one day, Takashi went to Nanako's parents to propose and greet them, saying that he wants to marry their daughter. Nanako actually has a disability, albeit a mild one, and she thought she would never be able to get married. Nanako's disorder is ADHD, by the way. The word disorder may sound somewhat heavy, but to the casual observer, there is no indication that there is a disorder at all. Nevertheless, she explained to Takashi that she had a disability, and asked him to decide on the marriage after considering that. As a result, Takashi's decision did not change, and the marriage went smoothly from there. Nanako married Takashi from working at the diners. And soon after the marriage, Takashi decided to move in with his mother. Nanako didn't say anything about it, but this is where it all went to hell. Takashi's mother after Nanako moved in.
Hey, cripple! Hurry up and mow the grass! You have a disability, but it's thanks to my son that you got married, so work like you're going to die.
She started to bully and yell at her every day. She made Nanako work day and night as if she were a slave, even though she knew nothing about agriculture. After about a year of such hellish days, Nanako found out she was pregnant. But by that time, she was yelled at every day. And Takashi, who thought he could treat Nanako any way he wanted to, started treating her like a slave. He made her work hard all day long on the farm, even though her belly was getting bigger. Even in the blazing heat in the middle of summer, it didn't change. They wouldn't let her drink water, and when she collapsed from a heat stroke,
You're useless. You can't even work properly.
all you're good for is working. So get up and get moving. And days went by as the mother and son continually abused her. They didn't nurse her despite feeling nauseous from heat stroke and high fever, and instead the words that came out of his mouth were,
Work, you slow wretch. It's beneath me to take a day off.
they would only shout abusive remarks. But the idiot mother and son thought she was strange for not running away after being treated like this, and that she deserved to be treated accordingly. And they escalated even more. Then one day, Nanako's belly was in great pain because of all the reckless things she was forced to do. She was 2 months away from giving birth. The two idiots couldn't imagine that Nanako, who had never run away no matter what they did, would ever run away. Nanako escaped while the two of them were out in high spirits. Someone who knew her happened to pass by her on the street. And when she saw Nanako, he thought she was someone else because of her sudden change in appearance. That's how malnourished and scrawny Nanako was, I was told. Nanako was taken to the hospital immediately, but it was already too late. The child could not come out of her belly alive. Of course, this story spread quickly, and it caused a big stir. Nanako's parents met Takashi's mother several times.
How was my daughter doing?
They asked her how their daughter was doing. Takashi's mother
They're getting along fine.
lied to them. So it was a shock to Nanako, but they were shocked not knowing she had a child in her belly. Nanako burst into tears and told them about the treatment she had received, not even knowing if that was a bad thing. The parents and regulars at the restaurant, "It's a devil's act," they all said. It was quick from there. To Takashi and his mother's actions, everyone, "This is not human behavior. Get a divorce, you jerk," and forcefully preceded the divorce while protecting Nanako. Because they're not in the city, they don't know much about the law and the penalties, but they succeeded in separating and divorcing the two of them. After a while, Nanako felt better and went back out to the store. But the grief of losing a child cannot be so easily wiped away. She was not smiling as much as she used to. After all they've done, Takashi and his mother, "I didn't want a disabled wife from the beginning,"
The children you would have had would have been handicapped too.
was the result. Everyone around was obviously upset. Takashi's family had no ties to anyone in town, so it didn't hurt to get ignored from them completely. For some years, they worked her like a slave and only helped them make a profit. It felt like it was running victory, which was not right. All while that was happening, Takashi's mother was killed in an accident. Takashi was working Nanako hard, but he didn't have the skill. After what happened to Nanako, the people who were there originally quit one by one. Soon after, Takashi looked for someone with farming skill. What he did to Nanako spread. "Who would work for you? You devil!" And no one was willing to help. Although he tried to recruit part-time and other employees, this was also impossible. He had no choice but to do it himself. But he couldn't manage it since he was clueless. Because it's not something that's going to have immediate results. He saw it crumble as time went on. And in no time at all, Takashi was in huge debt according to the people in the town hall. They say, karma pays off. And that's exactly what happened. Nanako was certainly a beloved presence in the town. Apparently, her parents were not the only one who wondered if she would be okay and happy when she got married. Since he put her through hell, no one gave him a helping hand, He has no immediate family either. No matter how much Takashi asked for help, people passed by unaided, and then the debt swelled. One of the regulars was talking about how he lost his farmland, and even his house. And that's when people stopped talking about Takashi. Then there was talk that he might have committed suicide somewhere. Someone said that they saw Takashi in a shabby park where no one else would go. Takashi had become homeless, and the regulars were satisfied. After that, when Takashi wasn't even mentioned, I confessed my feelings to Nanako. Nanako's parents explained to me what happened, about the miscarriage and that Nanako was disabled. But I already heard about all of that from the people around me, and the fact is, I have a slight hearing impairment. I then told Nanako's parents about myself. I told them I know how hard it is to be disabled, and that I want to go out with Nanako even with all of those things considered. I know Nanako's been through some trauma. I told her that I thought it would be good for us to take a long time and slowly get to know each other. For a while, I just talked to Nanako at the store, and gradually we started going out together, and we ended up dating. When I proposed to Nanako, I asked her to move in with me so that her parents would feel a little safer. It would be normal for them not to want her to live with someone, but Nanako's parents seemed surprised that I told them myself. I also suggested that Nanako's mother would have an easier time later on if we made the house a two-family house with a store on the first floor. I had lived in the city for a long time, but I had saved enough money when I was single, so financially I had no problem at all. In fact, I felt like I'd saved up for this moment. When Nanako's mother heard my proposal, she cried and asked me to take care of her. It's been many years since then, but the rather small diner has been renovated and is filled with regular customers every day. Nanako, who works with me at the diner, is happily caressing her growing belly. The regulars come to support us up to today.
I'm Maya. I've been married for 3 years and I live with my husband, Masaki. I have certain allergies. I get allergic symptoms when I eat food with artificial broth. I especially can't eat chemical seasonings. That's why I haven't been able to go out and eat out on dates since Masaki and I started going out. We would have lunch in my room and even dinner, so it was out of the question for us to celebrate our anniversary at a fancy restaurant. Lately, I've been thinking that I'm healthier than I used to be. I feel like I'm detoxed and I don't catch colds as easily. I'm really sorry I am the reason we couldn't go out to eat.
Don't worry about that, Maya. Your cooking is delicious. I'm a lucky guy.
Thanks. Yet, Masaki stays with me without complaining about it in any way.
It's a lot of work just to cook every day. I'll do the laundry and whatever I can do.
He says this helps me with a lot of the housework. I was grateful to be blessed with such a husband, and I lived happily every day.
By the way, it's Dad's birthday next week. We're having it at my parents' house, and my mum is asking me if you'd like to join as well. What do you think?
I haven't seen your father in a while, so let's go. I just won't eat. There's a reason why my husband is so considerate to me. When I went to my husband's parents' house, shortly after we got married, I visited them at the mealtime and offered to help in any way I could. The kitchen in this house is my castle, I was told, and couldn't help with anything. But when I sit down, you don't do anything, do you? And I was scolded. The food my mother-in-law cooked was Japanese food such as meat and potatoes and simmered dishes. I had told her about my allergies beforehand, but it would be rude to ask for confirmation, and I wasn't watching the cooking process. So just to be safe, I pretended to be engrossed in the conversation and decided not to touch the food. I thought it might be rude, but I didn't want to cause any allergic reactions or anything like that here, so there was no other choice. But in the end, my mother-in-law got annoyed that I didn't touch the food, and
You're a rude wife, and I've never heard of an allergy to broth in the first place. If you don't want to eat my food that badly, you don't have to come.
after saying that to me, she said to my husband,
You're always welcome to come alone. You're staying the night, right?
My father-in-law intervened when things were about to get awkward. I apologized for not being able to eat, and the situation was settled. But since then, they contact my husband frequently asking him to come. My mother-in-law told him not to bring me along. I couldn't figure out why she suddenly decided to invite me this time, but I was honestly happy that she invited me, so I decided to pick out a gift for her as well. I have a surprise to tell them too, so I'm sure they'll be happy. With some trepidation, we headed for my husband's parents' house.
All right, take a seat. I worked harder than usual today.
My mother-in-law greeted us with a smile upon our arrival. My father-in-law was a man of few words, but he was happy when my husband gave him a gift. My mother-in-law treated me normally too, and it looks like it was a needless worry. I was relieved.
Maya can't eat artificial broth, right? I'm making broth from seaweed and dried bonito flakes today, so it'll be okay.
I'm sorry for causing you inconvenience. The food my mother-in-law took the trouble to make for me. I decided to eat it without question. My throat! I can't breathe! I dropped the bowl I was holding in distress as my husband noticed the sound of my breathing. I can't breathe. When I thought I was done, my husband, who knew how to deal with this, held me in a comfortable position. But the symptoms progressed, and the rash started. If this continues and causes a seizure, it could be fatal.
Are you okay? Let's go to the hospital now. I'll get the car.
My husband ran to get the car, which was parked in a nearby coin-operated parking lot. My mother and father-in-law were left in the room with me, and then, as if my mother-in-law had been waiting for this moment, she began to say,
It's the same bonito broth they use everywhere. Maybe you're not allergic, but there's something wrong with you. Or maybe this bonito broth is defective.
It's not the time to be saying that.
You shut up. We're celebrating. I can't stand it. You're that weak, huh?
My father-in-law has my back, but my mother-in-law, she yelled at me mercilessly, still being unable to move.
We might never be able to see our grandchildren because of this girl. Don't you know the saying, 3 years without a child, then divorce? You're supposed to back off. I don't want to see you die here, so just go to the hospital and die.
In a daze, I looked at my mother-in-law and saw my husband behind her, looking like a demon.
Mom? Is that how you thought of Maya? There are some things you shouldn't say out loud. And when you asked me to bring Maya today, this is what you were trying to do.
No, Masaki, I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted you to enjoy the food.
There's no excuse for something like this. Besides, the whole reason we came here today was to report Maya's pregnancy. I thought it would be a great present for Dad.
What? You're kidding.
Yes, I was pregnant. I was still in the early stages of pregnancy, and I was starting to experience morning sickness.
I don't know what I'd do to you if something happens to Maya and the baby. Masaki, I called the nearby general hospital. They said to go in through the emergency entrance. Anyway, you need to hurry. Thanks, Dad.
And so I was rushed to the nearest hospital. While we were on the move, my father-in-law had given them all the details, including the fact that I was pregnant. A doctor from the obstetrics and gynecology department was also on standby. Thanks to that, I was able to undergo quick and proper treatment. Fortunately, neither I nor my baby were seriously harmed.
Maya, thank God. I was really scared because you said you couldn't take medicine.
My husband was crying next to the bed, as if all the tension released when I became conscious. After a while, my father-in-law came. My mother-in-law, who seemed to insist that it wasn't her fault, didn't come.
Dad, I'm sorry, but tell Mum she doesn't have to come, and tell her we're not letting her see our child. Yeah, okay. Maya, I'm really sorry this happened to you.
And my father-in-law bows his head deeply. He gives my husband a small sum of money to pay for the treatment.
Please take care of yourself, and give birth to a healthy child.
And left after saying that. 8 months later, I was able to give birth to a healthy baby boy. My mother-in-law pestered my husband with phone calls, but he ignored them all. And one day, she even came directly to the house and rang the doorbell insistently. My husband was home on maternity leave to deal with the situation.
I'm calling the police. I don't care if you're my parent or not.
After being yelled at, my mother-in-law left. My husband told me I never have to deal with my mother-in-law again. My father-in-law told me he felt the same way. My father-in-law, on the other hand,
I'm going to leave her when I retire.
after a few years, they divorced, and he started living in the countryside, which he had always wanted to do. I was relieved when I didn't hear from her for a while after getting addicted to a host club. But when she ran through her savings and even got into debt, "Hey, let me borrow some money." And she would frequently come to our house asking for money. Upon discussing it with my husband, we moved far away when our child entered elementary school. 6 months after we moved, my husband was transferred. He didn't have to change jobs, and me and my son started to get used to our new life. And above all, my mother-in-law wouldn't be coming anymore. Rumor has it that my mother-in-law, who was saddled with a huge debt, ran around crying to all her relatives, and one of them runs an inn. She's forced to work there without pay until her debts are paid. Well, at least she gets fed and shelter from the wind and rain.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. What did you think of today's episode? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on today's story. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe.